They said the light from Blackstone Lighthouse could guide even the lost souls of the dead. But one stormy night, the beacon extinguished forever, and something far more sinister took its place. A sinister invitation. In the coastal town of Blackstone, the lighthouse stood as a relic of hope long lost. Its beacon had once guided sailors through treacherous waters, but decades ago, on a stormy night, the light was extinguished, and with it, the last keeper disappeared without a trace. Since then, villagers avoided the cliffs, claiming the lighthouse was cursed. Mia, a journalist with a passion for the paranormal, arrived in Blackstone to investigate the mystery. Armed with her camera and curiosity, she dismissed the locals' warnings. As the sun set and clouds thickened, she made her way to the cliff's edge. The lighthouse loomed above, its frame battered by time and weather. Inside, the air was damp and cold, carrying a faint metallic scent. Her flashlight revealed peeling paint, shattered furniture, and rusted machinery. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the creak of her footsteps. The keeper's secrets. Mia reached the keeper's quarters and discovered an old photograph. Thomas Greaves, the last keeper, posed with his wife and young daughter. Their smiles were hauntingly faded, and the child's eyes seemed to follow her. Nearby, she found Greaves's journal, its leather cover worn with age. The early entries were mundane, maintenance logs, weather reports, and schedules. But as she read on, the tone shifted. The fog grows denser each night. I see figures moving in it, just beyond the cliffs. The light keeps them away, but it weakens. Later entries describe sleepless nights, whispers in the dark, and shadowy forms pressing against the glass. The final entry was barely legible, the words scrawled in haste. Without the light, they will come. Blood calls the light. The fog creeps. In the thunder rolled as Mia climbed the spiral staircase to the lantern room. From the broken windows, she could see the sea churn violently below. But it was the fog that caught her attention, unnaturally thick and advancing rapidly. Shadows moved within it, their outlines grotesque and misshapen. She raised her camera, snapping pictures of the eerie sight. Reviewing the footage, she gasped. The shapes were closer in the images, their glowing eyes staring directly at her. Suddenly, the fog surged forward, enveloping the base of the lighthouse. A low wail echoed through the air, sending shivers down her spine. The temperature dropped, and Mia felt an invisible weight pressing on her chest. The ritual. Desperate for answers, she flipped through the journal again, repeating the cryptic phrase, "Blood calls the light." Her mind raced. Was it a warning or a solution? The wails outside grew louder, almost human, yet distinctly alien. Shadows began to flicker inside the lantern room, their movements erratic and unnatural. In a desperate act, Mia picked up a shard of broken glass and cut her palm. Blood dripped onto the corroded mechanism. At first, nothing happened. Then, with a deep hum, the beacon roared to life. But this was no ordinary light. It was red, pulsating and sinister, casting an otherworldly glow. The fog recoiled, the shapes within it screaming as they dissolved into the darkness. Relief washed over her, but only for a moment. The walls of the room began to glow, ancient symbols etched into the stone coming to life. Whispers filled the air, growing louder until they became deafening. The new keeper Mia turned toward the shattered window, her reflection staring back at her. But the face wasn't hers. Hollow eyes and an impossibly wide grin gazed back, her features twisted into something monstrous. A voice deep and guttural filled her mind. "The light must stay lit. You are the keeper now." She screamed and bolted down the stairs, but no matter how many steps she descended, she always found herself back in the lantern room. The symbols glowed brighter, the red light intensifying until it consumed her vision. When she opened her eyes, she was no longer in control. Her body moved on its own, tending to the beacon as if guided by unseen hands. In the broken glass, she caught glimpses of another figure, Thomas Greaves. His mouth moved silently, his eyes filled with agony. The endless cycle. The next morning, the villagers noticed the lighthouse glowing again for the first time in decades. But its light wasn't white, it was red, casting eerie shadows over the cliffs. At night, the shadows seemed to move on their own, creeping closer to the town. Months later, a traveler arrived, drawn by stories of the haunted lighthouse. The villagers watched in silence as the stranger approached the cliffs, their expressions grim. High above, the red light flickered ominously, waiting for its next victim.